Good afternoon, and welcome to this meeting of the Indiana Justice Reinvestment Advisory Council, or JRAC. My name is Chris Goff. I serve as an Associate Justice on the Indiana Supreme Court, and I've been designated by Chief Justice Loretta Rush as JRAC's chair. I'd like to start today's meeting by wishing all JRAC members and any members of the general public who might be joining us a Happy New Year. I hope that your holidays were restful, and I thank you all for taking time out of your busy schedules to participate in this important meeting. Later in the agenda, members will have an opportunity to introduce themselves and to provide a brief report on any work or news that might be of benefit to JRAC. The first item of business on today's agenda is approval of JRAC minutes from the meeting held on December 11th, 2020. Members, all of you should have received a copy of those minutes prior to today's meeting. And if you've had an opportunity to review them, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Judge Steve Luce, I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Steve. So there's a motion made by Steve Luce to approve the minutes as presented. Is there a second?
This is Adam McQueen, Justice Goff, I'll second.
Thank you, Adam. So it's been moved and seconded now to approve the minutes as submitted on December 11th for the December 11th, 2020 JRAC meeting. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. The minutes will stand approved. The next item on today's agenda is revisiting the legislative items that have previously been discussed during this past year's JRAC meetings. And I would start with Senate Bill 222, money bail by Senator Talion. Senator Talion, have you been able to join us yet today, ma'am? I'm not hearing from Senator Talion. I know this is a very busy time of year, and I certainly appreciate all of the participation and effort that she put in to JRAC this year. But I'm not seeing her on the meeting yet today, so we'll move on to the next item, which is House Bill 1068, Local Justice Reinvestment Advisory Council. Is there any report from either Representative Fry or Mary Kay Hudson on local JRAC?
I'm not sure if Representative Fry is on the call. If he's not, I'm happy to give an update.
Sure, thank you, Mary Kay.
So House Bill 1068, which is the Local Justice Reinvestment Advisory Council bill that this group worked on with Representative Fry, was heard in committee with Representative McNamara, Courts and Criminal Code on Wednesday. I testified in favor of the bill, as did other members of JRAC. There were some amendments made to the bill, which were as a result of recommendations made by this group. Those amendments were accepted by the committee and they were approved by the committee, and the bill passed 11-0. The one exception to the recommendations this group made in amendments to the bill lies with the language surrounding our study of disproportionality. But I think Representative Fry may be in conversations with IPAC and others about possibly looking at that language moving forward. If I think that language does remain in the bill, I think this group has an opportunity to shape what information we're able to report, or what information we do report based upon the information that we have available to us. So I certainly think that the language, we can work with that language moving forward. And I don't know if there are other members of JRAC who would like to weigh in, who may have been present at that committee meeting.
Anyone have any further comments or any questions before we move on to the next item? Well, I'm not hearing any, so I just want to take this opportunity to thank everyone who contributed and took some time out of your schedule to work in small group on this. I think that this piece of legislation will benefit a lot of people. The next item for consideration then, or a report out, would be House Bill 1467, dealing with community health center matters. I know that Jay Chaudhry was planning on attending, but I got word that he may be a few minutes late, so I'm not
I'm
sure
here.
if Jay's on. Oh, great. Jay, can you give us a report out on the bill?
I certainly can. I don't know if I'm the most appropriate person. I don't know if but the thing of probably of most interest to JRAC is that the bill proposes adding 2 members to JRAC. The CEO or designee of the Indiana Council of Community Mental Health Centers, and the CEO or designee of Mental Health America of Indiana. So that's my very neutral summation of the bill.
Well, thank you, Jay. Anyone else have any comments or questions regarding House Bill 1467?
And to be clear, this is not the bill. This is the bill that was proposed by the Indiana Council for Community Mental Health Centers, not DMHA.
Thank you.
Judge Steve Luce, myself and Sheriff Clark, we had a call with Steve McCaffrey, Matt Brooks on the mental health on this bill just to stay in touch with them. And I think one of my understandings of the bill was that the treatment in the jails, that when we do treatment in jails, we want to ask ourselves at the end of the day, is it really treatment? So it's, I guess, having more qualified individuals and make sure they're certified doing treatment in the jails, as opposed to just many rural counties. And we don't want to push them away, but they do have the just local mom and pops that come in and they've been doing it for years. But, we were speaking with them. I think that's part what I got out of the bill that we would definitely support. And because we want to make sure in the end, when they're leaving the criminal justice system, that they're getting their appropriate and right treatment and diagnosed right too. That's all I have.
Well, Steve, thank you for that. And especially for any members of the general public who might be joining today's meeting, I just want to commend both the Sheriff's Association and DMHA for the tremendous collaboration over the past year in expanding capacity to treatment for those incarcerated. So thank you, Steve, and thank you, Jay. The next item then for consideration or report out would be Senate Bill 217, dealing with determination of competency to stand trial. Mary Kay, can I ask you to give a brief report out on Senate Bill 217?
Yes, sir. So the members of JRAC discussed this at our last meeting, and since our last meeting, a smaller group of us met yesterday to discuss the language that was proposed in a draft bill surrounding competency evaluation and restoration services. Senator Sandlin did author that bill on behalf of a group that's working with Senator Sandlin and Justice Goff on behavioral health issues. The original version of that bill amended the provisions for the qualification and number of individuals who would be conducting the assessments. And there were some concerns presented by a couple of JRAC members surrounding those. So we met yesterday to talk about some suggested revisions to that. So that would be agreeable to our office, Division of Mental Health and Addiction, Governor's Office, IPAC, and the PD Council. And we came up with some good language that was offered by IPAC that's been presented to Senator Sandlin. So Senator Sandlin will be offering some amendments to that bill that was originally filed. That will, the primary change is that rather than having one evaluater from the outset, there will still be a presumption that there will be at least 2 or 3 evaluations ordered by the court. But the amendments to the bill allow the parties to agree to one evaluation, which has the potential to reduce the time frame for certain individuals to receive the competency evaluation and potentially restoration services if that's recommended. So Senator Sandlin's working on that. An update to our conversation yesterday for the small group that met. Senator Sandlin emailed me. He's working with Senator Young on getting this bill heard. Because of the timing, he may not be able to have the bill as introduced heard in Senator Young's committee. So I think he's going to be working with having that language amended into another bill. So he is going to keep us posted on that. He indicated that it will likely be heard in Senator Young's committee on February the 16th.
Well, thank you, Mary Kay. I know a lot of members in attendance helped with this. Are there any further comments or any questions before we move on? Well, I especially want to again thank Mary Kay, but I also want to thank Chris Naylor and Bernice and anyone else I might be neglecting to mention, but I'm particularly aware of your efforts, the three of you, in getting this language agreed upon and hopefully move forward. So thank you very much for your efforts on that, and Jay as well. And then before we move on to the next I guess, larger item in the agenda, are there any other bills of interest to JRAC that members might be working on or wish to make a report out? All right.
Justice Goff, on the money bill, I just wanted to report back to JRAC. That bill, Senator Talion had requested that the pretrial committee take a look at that bill. And so we did. We met after our last meeting, and we did take a look at that bill. I think she had hoped that we would come up with some agreed language. That we did not do that, but we did give some feedback to her on that bill in the form of a memo that I sent to her the week after we met. And so I just wanted to report that there was a conversation that happened as a on that. That was the 222, I think. And we had some follow-up on that as well.
Judge Spitzer, I really appreciate you bringing that to my attention. I got a report back from Mary Kay about some of those communications you were having, and we certainly appreciate the work that the committee is doing in trying to help our communities get their pretrial programs off the ground. So thank you very much for touching base with Senator Talion as she puts forth this effort to get some statutory changes made as well. Thank you.
Justice Goff, I do have another concern about, there's a bill, I think it's House Bill 1202 that relates to sentencing and modification of, sort of an automatic modification of sentencing at the parole level. And I know that there are some concerns, I think, from my colleagues on the bench about that. And I think not so much necessarily with the concept, but the mechanics of how it's set out in the proposed bill. So that would be something that we would have some concern about from the Judges Association. And then also the joint resolution, Senate Joint Resolution number 16 is a matter of concern. I know it's a little bit outside of the purview of JRAC. That has to do with sort of a different way of selecting appellate judges. But I think the concern for JRAC's purposes is that the legislative impetus for that seems to be that a misunderstanding about sort of the pretrial effort. In other words, I've heard statements from legislators indicating that they believe that we had eliminated bail unilaterally from the but by the Supreme Court. I mean, that's just a complete misunderstanding or misapprehension of what has actually happened or what the pretrial effort is about. And so I'm concerned with that misapprehension being out there, and then that apparently driving some legislative efforts. So I guess those are the two other comments that I have with regards to legislation.
All right. Thank you, Judge Spitzer.
This is Bernice. I just wanted to follow up, if I may.
Sure, please.
Judge Spitzer, on 1202, the mechanics that you were concerned about, is it the modification part that's concerning?
Yes, I think that what we would be, not the part that goes back to the court, but in terms of sort of what happens if the parole board decides to modify. It's not clear in the statute in terms of what happens next. And that's kind of important for the courts to know how that happens next. Will we have an opportunity to manage a transition back to the community in some way through community supervision, or how, what does that look like? And so I think those are some of the concerns that I would have.
I asked,
I think-
I asked because there was a pending, I didn't mean to cut you off. Sorry, Judge.
I think frankly, other judges may have concerns about an invasion into judicial discretion where you had sentenced somebody previously, and now somebody else is changing a prior sentence that a judge had imposed. And it's one thing for the judge to come back and revisit his or her own sentence, but it's another thing for somebody else to substitute their judgment for a sentence imposed by the judge. That's not typically how the system works. So that's a concern as well.
I spoke up because there was an amendment. I don't think it was adopted, but the amendment would remove the modification process and the appellate, the appeals sentence modification process that was in the bill that would come out. And my understanding from comments that were made in committee that was done in response to judicial concern about, courts being not flooded, but courts having to deal with that. There was some committee discussion about giving notice when the parole board was considering giving somebody relief under this process, to give notice to the prosecution if there are any victims, and to the court. So it's on schedule for next Wednesday. So you could still definitely share, your concerns.
And I know we have some other people from the Judges Association that's sort of keeping an eye on that and even participating, but I just wanted to kind of give everybody's attention that there were some concerns that we had.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you, Bernice. Anything else?
Justice Goff,
Mark,
Indiana,
yes.
yes, thank you. The Indiana Public Defender Commission's request for reimbursing misdemeanor expenses is in Senate Bill 37. We're still awaiting a hearing from the Senate Judicial Committee, and that's the status of it. Just to remind everybody, the JRAC did endorse the concept earlier this year or last year.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you for that. Thank you for pushing that. Anyone else? If
Judge?
there are no, I'm sorry.
Just a update with
Please,
the
Steve.
House Bill 1006, which is the police enhancement bill from Greg Sturwald. We started working on this in early June, and I really believe the final result is going to be just an awesome bill for law enforcement and the citizens in Indiana. So far, it's moved through committee, and just this week through Ways and Means, unanimously 23-0 to pass it, to move it on to the House floor. But the ask there was a $70 million ask for law enforcement academy, which is way overdue, and I think it's almost a historical bill if this thing goes through, and it looks like it's on its way. But just wanted to mention that. But we've had nothing but support from just other associations, Black Caucus, NAACP, and the things we've addressed with it. And I think it's a bill, again, that we did a lot of framework in the beginning, and law enforcement, other associations had input there towards the end. But pretty proud of what we're trying to move through. And I think it's going to really do well here in Indiana to be a model for other states.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you for all the tremendous work that sheriffs have done this year. Very challenging circumstances. We appreciate that. Thank you for the report.
Justice Goff, I have a couple of things to report. Sorry, I was late.
No, Senator, thank you. I was going to call on you next, please.
Okay, couple things. First of all, I filed a package juvenile justice bill. Sorry, I don't have the number. Bernice might know it. It had 5, 6, 7 things in it that were kind of public defenders would like to see this. Mike Young has scheduled it for a hearing, and he's going to hear parts of it. So I will tell you that all these have to do with juvenile justice issues. One part has to do with kids being put into adult facilities. The other one has to do with modification, or modification of a sentence after 15 years. Now, I'm not sure what the bill was that was going on that you were just talking about in the House, but maybe some of those comments apply. And the third part that he's going to talk about is expungement, automatic expungement of certain juvenile records. And finally, to my surprise, he told me that he would hear the part of the bill having to do with competency determinations for juveniles. That's going to be heard not this coming Tuesday, but a week from Tuesday, which is, let's see.
It's the 9th, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah, that's right. So that's number one. The other thing, and I'm not sure how much this group really wants to know it, but I want you all to be aware. I talked to the Chief Justice some time ago about the coming eviction crisis. And we know it's going to happen as soon as that moratorium goes away. And we looked at a couple of things. The bill filing deadline had already passed, but I have a vehicle bill and I have talked to Senator Bray, and he's going to allow me to do it. And Liz Brown is going to give it a hearing in judiciary, and it will basically say that for residential lease evictions, we're going to bump up the small claims amount to 10,000 for the next, it'll be like a 2-year period. And there will be a settlement conference that the Chief Justice has already put together. We're going to make it discretionary for emergency possessions and mandatory for regular evictions. And part of the reason is this. It has just come to our attention that the last stimulus, not anything that Biden might come up with, but the last stimulus, I call it Stimulus 5, is going to send almost $400 million to the state of Indiana for housing assistance. And we want to make sure that we slow down these evictions long enough to get everybody funneled into the housing assistance program. So if anybody has any special interest or knowledge about that, give me a call sometime off this meeting.
Justice, if I may,
Yes,
Senator
please.
Talion, thank you for bringing up the eviction thing. I absolutely think that is a topic that JRAC should be concerned about because it does touch so many people who are in the criminal justice system. So thank you for your efforts on that. And the juvenile bill you were talking about is 368, by the way. So that's the number of the bill that Senator Talion was talking about. But I would love to keep hearing about the progression of the eviction bill because I think that would be a great relief for our clients or people in the criminal justice system.
Senator Talion, this is Mary Kay. Our office administers the landlord-tenant settlement conference process. And so we would be happy to talk with you and share information about how that's going and some of the progress we've made so far.
Also, Justice Goff, if I may,
Please,
real quick.
Devin. Yeah, please go ahead.
I had a couple questions since we're speaking about 368 regarding the provisions that actually apply to the criminal code report that we do in conjunction with JRAC every year. And then also some of the reporting requirements that are outlined as far as collecting information from the sheriff's offices about posting the juveniles. And so we were a little unclear as to when those reports that we receive from the sheriff's offices are supposed to be posted for public view. is it a weekly, a monthly, an annual basis? And then also the section of our code where that outlines the duties to monitor criminal code reform. There's also an addition to that that requires us to track numbers of juveniles in the jail or that are waived to adult courts. And we were a little unclear if that's supposed to go in the larger criminal code evaluation report that we do in conjunction with JRAC, or is that supposed to go into the juvenile only report that is due October 30th every year? And so we were a little unclear about when that was supposed to happen. No issues with doing any of that. There will be some costs, and perhaps if possible, we'd like to see maybe some delayed implementation on that reporting piece, because there's just no infrastructure built to get that information from the sheriff's offices to us. So it would take a lot of work to get that done. Happy to do all of it. We just need some time to do it, and then just some clarity on those 2 points. Other than that, that's the only thing I wanted to bring up related to that bill.
Thank you, Devin. I'll make sure that someone circles back to you with respect to that, so we can get you a clear answer. I know so many reports were delayed this year because of the extraordinary circumstances that we all went through. But I need to do some checking to get you an answer specific to that. All right. Anyone else with items of legislative interest?
Justice Goff, this is.
Yes, please, Chris.
Yeah, Chris Naylor, we've discussed the driving while suspended legislation in past meetings, and House Bill 1199 is making good progress. This is a comprehensive approach to help Hoosiers get their driver's license back who they've been suspended for not having insurance or not paying a traffic ticket or not showing up in traffic court for a traffic ticket. We hope to help over 300,000 Hoosiers with this bill, and it's been great teamwork. We appreciate the partnership of the Office of Court Services, partnership of Public Defender Council, the partnership of the Governor's Office, making it part of the next level agenda. I want to thank Chris Daniels from our staff and kind of spearheading these efforts, and also want to thank Chair McNamara for carrying the bill, hearing the bill, and passing her committee this week. Next step will be off to Ways and Means. So if anyone has interest and want to come and testify and support in Ways and Means, could always use the help. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Anyone else? Very well. Well, the next item on our agenda then is a report out from the JRAC Racial Equity Work Group. And for that report, I would call on Bernice Corley and Steve Luz.
Thank you, Justice. We had a meeting yesterday, and it was more of a, I will say, organizational meeting. Our main purpose was to do sort of a data inventory to see what agencies have what data and which data includes race elements, as well as what reports are generated. So we spent an hour going through that data. The owners of that data were on the call, and they're members of the committee, so they were able to explain what their capability is, what reports they already do. And then we also identified some gaps in state data around race that we would like to see collected. So that was our main meeting. I thought it was very helpful, very helpful discussion. Our next meeting, we've not set yet, but we'll be setting soon, probably in a month. We'll be then identifying what we want to tackle. Now that we know the data world that we have available to us, what areas or what questions do we have, what issues do we want to tackle? And so that'll be our second meeting to set out a vision of what it is that we would like to start working on. Steve, I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to add.
No, other than I think the data points are very important, as you said, and we did kind of we did a little overview of the jail data transformation project and what Sheriff Clark is going to try and provide you with through his systems, and being very knowledgeable with the jail commander who knows how to run that and help out in some of these data points and just really start moving the project or the group.
Thank you. Thank you, Justice.
No, thank you, Bernice, and thank you, Steve, for really spearheading this important work. So we really appreciate it and glad to hear about the progress. Any questions from members? Great. Our next item then is member discussion for fiscal year 2022-2023 budget forecast and local impact. So I would ask if there's any further report or update from either Senator Talion or Kirsten Haney.
So just a few updates. The largest one being the governor's recommended budget has been officially released. So now it's in legislative hands. We did have the December revenue forecast, and for anyone interested, all of that is archived and available online. Or if you have specific questions related to some of the more technical questions, just let me know. The other big item is we will have another revenue forecast closer to April to make sure we can better track revenue and have an idea before we finally close out that budget. Revenue is definitely looking better than we were. Things are much rosier. I think in most cases, agencies fared pretty well in the budget, which is great news. We were able to restore a lot of those 15% cuts that agencies had to build a budget off of. One of the most impactful, that's probably very positive news for people here, is we were able to restore the community corrections appropriation. That one was a big one. So definitely stay focused for another revenue forecast in April, but those are the biggest updates on my end. Thanks.
Well, let me just add a couple of comments to that. For me, the most, and you know, in 15 years of doing this, the most striking thing to me is all of the money that is coming into the state from a whole variety of federal programs. We still have CARES money left. We thought it would be done if we didn't spend it by the end of December. But we actually got a reprieve because the stimulus 5 package, which is what I'm calling the last one from December, that package actually gave an additional year to spend that money. Now, in addition to the CARES money, the last stimulus package is bringing in money to the state in big hunks that I'm not even sure I know all of them. And I'm trying to get a handle on exactly what we're getting. But for example, I'm hearing $400 million is going to housing assistance, 250 million or so is going to highways, another 800 million is being filtered to K through 12. So what I don't know is whether there is stimulus money already through the stimulus 5 package. It might be available for any of our programs. And then, of course, we haven't even talked about what the new Congress might push through. So this could be a year when we have a chance to do a lot of things, but we need to really get a firm, you know, list of what's the new money, what's the new stimulus money, and the uses that it can be put to. So I'm still waiting to try to wade through that, Kirsten.
Senator Justice Goff, if I might follow up.
Please, Bernice, yes.
Senator Talion, thank you for raising that. I think several of us, when the CARES money first came to the state, I mean, we definitely, from the public defense point of view, and I'm sure a lot of programs represented in this call, have needs or things that would have been helpful to have additional funding to be able to meet needs in light of COVID. And I really felt unclear on how the money, you know, how priorities were set. And so I think it would be really helpful for this group just to have a better understanding of how the money, how priorities are set, and how to communicate needs that maybe haven't percolated to the top, but that are, should be a priority for the state of Indiana as well.
Well, Bernice, I absolutely agree with you. And it's been, it's been one thing, the governor had all this money under his purview while the legislature was not in session. Now that it is in session, there's some question about whether any of that money will go through the budget process. The second thing is, they post these big dollar amounts from the feds, but then it takes them weeks, even months, to issue quote guidance, meaning regulations about how it can be used. And it's been really difficult. I'm sure it's been difficult enough for the budget agency, and even worse for the legislators to try to keep track and chase it down.
Just to respond quickly on that, and I really do appreciate both points brought up, and I will pass this along because I know there's also been, just people wanting to better understand the Federal CARES Act, especially with updated guidance and new amounts coming out. So I will definitely pass those concerns along and see if at the next meeting we can definitely have something that I don't know if that update would be from me or OMB, but I'll definitely get eyes and ears on that to see what we can do.
Any other questions or comments for either Kirsten or for Senator Talion? Well, I'm not hearing any, but Kirsten, I've really appreciated your commitment to the group and your efforts to keep us updated in this year's challenges. And I also want to especially echo what Bernice said, Senator Talion. She and I have been party to so many conference calls over the past year, trying to figure out whether a really important need could be funded by these CARES dollars. And your wisdom and your understanding of these issues is really, I think, of critical importance to the criminal justice system. And I just want you to know how much I appreciate your willingness to attend these meetings with such regularity to keep us apprised of everything that you're doing on behalf of the state. So I really appreciate your efforts. Thank you, ma'am. We're now at that point in the meeting where members of JRAC will have an opportunity to make a brief report out on behalf of their agencies or organizations. And I'm first going to call on the Public Defender Council and Bernice Corley.
I always hate going first because it's after I listen to everyone else that I go, oh yeah, I should have said blah, blah, blah. Really, session is just occupying all of our time, and I'm sure you all are sharing the same experience. So, I mean, with respect to anything going on with our agency, there's just, wholehearted rolling up our sleeves and deepening our reach with respect to training. Our webinars have been incredibly successful, very well attended, and just doing our best to have a diversity of topics to meet the moment, as issues are coming up with around release and COVID and how those issues might intersect. We have trainings around those. And so things are pretty busy at the council, but we're definitely focused on the long session and the budget year. So.
Thank you, Bernice. Any questions for Bernice before I move down our list? Thank you. I next call in on Indiana Prosecuting Attorneys Council, Chris Naylor.
Thank you, Justice. I think prosecutors across the state are focused on March 1st when jury trials are scheduled to return. And, we're getting close to that prep time when subpoenas will be going out and to get back in the business that we do. And so, we've had a little break since mid-December with because of COVID. So, people will be extremely busy once the trial calendars start rolling again. But that's all I've got to report back on today.
All right, thank you, Chris. Any questions from members for Chris before I move on to the next organization? I next call on the Division of Mental Health and Addiction and Jay Chaudhary.
Thanks, Justice Goff. Kind of the main thing, as far as this group is concerned for us is the kind of laser focus on fixing our competency restoration services. We started, a project, and this is sort of directed towards Steve Luce mainly. I guess I could have just called him, but I'll do it in a public forum instead. We are right there. We're almost there with this project to get some of our kind of lower hanging fruit jail inmates that are awaiting restoration out of jails into kind of private freestanding psychiatric hospitals. The contracting on this one has been a bear. We're almost there, which is to be expected to a certain extent, because I think that the key with all of these different paths forward that we're working on with competency restoration is that we are trying to contract out an involuntary commitment. So it's just extraordinarily complicated. And so, but we're almost there. We hope to launch this in the next couple weeks to get a few and, see, and we're excited to start to see kind of what impact that makes on our wait list and everything. Also in that vein, we're moving along. We've gotten our first pilot cases going in both Vanderburgh and Marion counties for both the jail and community-based competency restoration projects. Again, every single step of this being a new thing has been kind of fraught with all kinds of challenges and back and forth, but we're just blazing forward. And I think that if and when we kind of get the ball rolling and the momentum going downhill, I think you'll start to see these sorts of things pop up everywhere. We also just released a request for information to expand the jail and community-based competency restoration programs to some other counties, hopefully by this summer. So that's the main update for me.
Well, that's a big update, and thank you for that, Jay. I know just how long and difficult this road has been, and how much effort has gone into what I think it's going to really help a lot of people. So I really appreciate that. Any members have any questions for Jay before I move on? Hearing none, I next call on the Indiana Sheriff's Association and a report by Steve Luce.
Just a couple other little items, and I'll send this out. We do have a complete research that Dr. Eric Grauman of IU Public Research Division did on the pandemic in the jails. So I have that completed. I'll send that out to the group. I did send the spreadsheet right here. You see what was our latest jail survey. And keep in mind, jail data is just, we just don't have a way to pull in real-time jail data. This actually took me about a month to get from all 92 counties. So it's not a snapshot on a certain day, but during a 30-day period. So we're getting better, but once we get this other project done, I believe it's going to be so much better for everyone. So that is at your disposal there to look at and to reference. We did send out to the sheriffs. We did some research to actually see what litigation was out there that's related to COVID-19 issues in the jails. And there's a link out there, and I can forward that. Currently, there's about 46 lawsuits out there nationally that's facing with COVID-19 and the jails or corrections. We also currently have 19 counties doing the MAT, the opioid grant that the governor's office and DMHA has partnered with ISA. We had a call this morning as an update. We're doing quarterly calls. And right now, 19 sheriff's offices are doing that. Hopefully we can bring more on. And then the other thing would be, and Mary Kay could probably talk a little about it, is just we are involved in a project with them and building a JMS that could be available to sheriffs if they're looking to change their jail management system. We currently have about 23. And then we are working with Department of Corrections in rewriting the Indiana jail standards. We've had our second meeting and hopefully our final draft, and it'll go to DOC for their legal to look over, and then over to the Attorney General's office, where we'll start the public meetings and remarks and comments. So just a lot of little projects moving. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Do any members have any questions for Steve before we move on? All right, hearing none. Next call on the Indiana Department of Corrections, and report out by Chris Blessinger on behalf of Commissioner Rob Carter.
Good afternoon. So basically our focus right now has been on vaccine planning. So we've been following the community standards for the offenders. So approximately, maybe, I think it's around 500 offenders have been vaccinated at this point. You know, kind of looking at the same standards, the 80 and over, 70 and over. We have done the offenders and infirmaries, and also the women and the wee ones program. Staff are categorized as, you know, first responders. So they've been able to get the vaccine in any hospital or through a clinic that we have one day at each facility that we've had. So that's been great. That's what a lot of our focus has been right now, is just really getting all that planning done. And also just to follow up with what Kirsten said, we didn't get impacted with community corrections funds with the budget cuts this year. So that was a really nice surprise for us. So yeah, so just want to pass that information along, and that's about all I got right now. Thanks.
Thank you, Chris. Are there any questions by members for Chris before we move on? Right. Hearing none, I next call for report out from the Office of Judicial Administration. Mary Kay.
Thank you, Justice Goff. I want to follow up on what Steve mentioned about our work with the Sheriff's Association. We received a grant, and I think I've reported on this before, through the Criminal Justice Institute for the purpose of improving the criminal history information. And part of that project will include building a jail management system that will be custom for ultimately will be custom for any of the jails who are wishing to use a new system. One of the benefits will be is that it'll improve communications for the purpose of improving our criminal history records, but also it will have an ability to talk to other systems, including Odyssey, quite possibly the supervised release system. We'll also want to build interfaces with the PCMS and the public defender system, and any other systems that it makes sense to interface jail information with. So we had a meeting this week, kind of an organizational meeting with Steve Luce and Sheriff Clark and Bill Wilson, and staff from our office and staff from the Office of Court Technology. So that was just a kind of a planning meeting. We're going to be doing some work moving forward and forming a work group to start building requirements. We also are very interested in the prosecutors and PDs and DOCs and other agencies' perspective on this project. And so we're going to be reaching out to agencies to see how you can assist us to provide information, or we make sure that we're meeting the needs of our agencies. We expect that this will be a multi-phase process or a multi-phase project. So once we build system requirements and we actually develop a system, we'll be working with the Sheriff's Association to identify probably 3 counties to pilot this system in. Knowing that this is a significant effort and endeavor, it will take a number of years to fully complete. We would expect having to seek additional funding sources to fully execute this, but ultimately we're hoping this is a good resource for sheriffs who are in need of a new jail management system. So we'll continue to provide updates on that to JRAC. Our office is continuing to watch the legislative session as is all of our partner agencies. So we're keeping busy with that. We are still doing a lot of training for courts and community supervision agencies, but it's all still virtual. We are looking forward to the day when we can get back in person. And our staff is still working closely with sites on pretrial release and problem-solving courts and A&D programs and JDAI, but we're still having to conduct all of those visits virtually as well. So I think that's all from the Office of Court Services, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Well, thank you as always, Mary Kay. Do any members of JRAC have any questions for Mary Kay before we move on? Hearing none, I would next call on the Indiana Criminal Justice Institute and Devin McDonald for a report out.
Thank you, Justice Goff. We don't really have much to report out, as with what Bernice said. We're kind of wrapped up with session and everything ourselves. There's a lot of things that touch on the work that we do as an agency. I would like to speak to both the notification and the data transformation projects that we've been working on. Those slowed a little bit over the holidays, but we're looking to ramp those back up and hopefully close those out here in the next couple weeks. So those will be pretty big issues that we can hopefully get awarded and have some of these data, especially jail data issues, starting to be resolved this year, which should be pretty good. Other than that, we don't really have much going on.
Thank you, Devin. Are there any questions from members for Devin before we move on? Hearing none, I would next call on the Association of Community Corrections Act Counties and a report out from Ralph Watson.
Thank you, Justice Goff. We really don't have much of a report today, but we did want to express our pleasure that the community corrections funding was not reduced, and thank you for the DOC with all that assistance. And we're looking forward to working with them on several upcoming projects.
Well, thank you as always, Ralph. Are there any questions for Ralph from members of JRAC? Hearing none, I would next call for a report out from Probation Officers Professional Association of Indiana and Adam McQueen. Adam?
Thank you, Justice Goff. Really nothing of note to report out to this group, but I would again echo what Ralph just said, and to thank Christine for the information that she was able to pass along today. That's definitely welcome news to even those beyond community corrections.
Thank you, Adam. Any questions for Adam? I'd next call on, again, the State Budget Agency and Kirsten Haney. Kirsten, is there anything else that you'd like to report out on behalf of the Budget Agency?
Thanks, Justice Goff. Nothing additionally on my end. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks again. Again, any questions from JRAC members? Hearing none, I would next call on the Association of Indiana Counties and a report out by David Botorf. David?
There you go. Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to participate. Like others, we're primarily focused on the State House and all the legislation moving through, and on the budget, really trying to keep an eye on the public defender funding, seeing if we can get some increases there. And on the community corrections, that was very good news. And maybe just a general question I had on community corrections: when we saw the jail populations decrease through most of 2020, did the population or participants in community correction have a corresponding increase in, I don't know if Ralph or someone else with the community corrections could answer that.
David, from our perspective, I believe that a lot of agencies didn't see an increase in populations because of there wasn't a lot of court activity going on. And I know some of our agencies had some changes in their supervision methods by their local judiciary. So I don't think we saw a tremendous increase in our population. Deputy Commissioner Bellinger may have some additional information. I'm not certain.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, it's a great question. I don't know if anybody else has any information for David.
Well, I think that Ralph was correct on that. Really, with the courts being closed, we didn't see a huge jump. I think we thought that we might see a really, really large jump, But I do think in some aspects there was some, we did see some influxes and changes of the levels of supervision, I think. I don't have all of that stuff right in front of me, but I'd be glad to get you any additional information that anyone has.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, David, and thank you, Chris and Ralph for jumping in. Anybody else? Are there any questions from any JRAC members for David before we move on?
Justice Goff, just to sort of piggyback off of what was just asked, community corrections numbers, probation numbers, I'd also be curious, I don't know who might have this information, perhaps IPAC, but to know how different things like prosecutors diversion programs and things like that have been impacted as well.
This is Chris again. I actually, I'm getting some text messages, some information, so I'm going to give you some info now. Not the overall population that we saw changed, but an example of like work release numbers decreased, but then some electronic monitoring numbers did increase. And that would make sense, you know, to get the offenders out of the facilities and put them on electronic monitoring due to the pandemic. So if that helps any.
Yeah, thanks, everybody. Thanks again, Dave. I next call then on the Indiana Judges Association and a report out by Judge Mark Spitzer. Judge Spitzer.
Thank you, Justice Goff. Like everybody else, we've been kind of keeping an eye on legislation. I already talked about some issues of concern there and shared that with the body. I think we, would point out that even though sort of we have been doing business differently, we're continuing to do business. Most cases are resolved by a plea of guilty. And so even though we're not holding trials, still cases are getting resolved. Chris talked about Chris Naylor talked about the prosecutors kind of having a little bit of a break, but they haven't taken much of a break on filing cases. So we still got plenty of customers. And a lot of those cases are getting resolved in one way or another. So we're still open. We're just operating a little bit differently. Many of us are operating in partly or completely remotely, but still being able to do that. So as we get into sort of the March area, then we need to look at how we're going to handle sort of trying cases in the future. And so everybody's kind of hoping to figure that out. And I would say that the March is not a hard start. There still is the ability to, in certain communities or maybe in most communities, not to move forward with jury trials. And so it's going to depend on kind of how things move forward in terms of when we can really get restarted with jury trials in earnest. What my personal experience was that, while you're okay with shorter trials and there's sort of less risk to have people in for a day or two to have a jury trial, that it becomes much more difficult if you have longer trials in terms of keeping a juror that does not get exposed in some way. And a lot of times that's just community spread and then that taking the case off of the docket. And so those are just some of the things we're kind of trying to figure out as we move forward.
Thank you, Judge Spitzer. Are there any questions for Judge Spitzer before we move on? Then I next call on the Public Defender Commission and a report out by Mark Rutherford.
Yes, thanks, Justice Goff. Not much, but a really important thing happened, and we're very appreciative that Governor Holcomb put into his governor's proposed budget the request that we would like the additional $2.9 million per year in order to cover all the costs of the counties and the commission's program for reimbursement of their public defender fees and costs, and for any anticipated additional counties that might join in the next 2-year period. So we're very, very pleased that that was included in the governor's budget proposal and very much appreciative of it. And that's my report.
Thank you for that report, Mark. Any questions for Mark before we move on? Hearing none, I next call on the Senate Corrections and Criminal Law Committee. And I know we have Senator Talion on. Senator, is there anything else that you'd like to report out on behalf of the committee?
I can't, I don't think so. I'm trying to think of a couple of the more egregious bills that we have going through there, but I guess I'll keep my comments to myself. We still have a lot of bills going through, increase penalties and put more people in jail. So no, nothing else to no other favorable things to report.
Okay, very well. Are there any questions for Senator Talion then before we move on? Well, then last but certainly not least, I would call for a report out from the Office of Governor Holcomb. And for that purpose, I'd call on Doug Hunsinger.
Thank you, Justice Goff. And I think the best part about going last is most of it's already been mentioned. So obviously the governor's legislative agenda, we're very pleased that that it is all moving. We're at our next level recovery efforts are focused on the driving while suspended, the telehealth bill, the extension of our syringe service programs, and also the bill that makes some changes to the regulation of our opioid treatment programs. Obviously, we continue to be very focused on our response to COVID-19. I do want to point out that 29 days into the new year, we have already seen more overdoses in our emergency departments than in this time 2020 and 2019. So we do know that we're going to have a lot of work to do near the end of the pandemic. I was able to join Steve this morning with his sheriffs, and I just want to say thank you to DMHA and to the Sheriff's Association for all the work that they're doing on the pilots around substance use disorder and implementing that treatment and the bridge to external treatment on the outside of jail, and then also the work that they're doing on the effort around incompetent to stand trial. So I can't thank the sheriffs enough for the work that they have been willing to put in. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Doug. Are there any members of JRAC who have questions for Doug?
Justice, this is Chris Naylor. I would just kind of have one follow-up on Doug's comments, and also to speak a little bit to Judge Spitzer's comment about the filing of charges. We have severe challenges facing us. The crime has not stopped during COVID. In fact, the final numbers for 2020 show a 40% increase in the number of murders filed in the state of Indiana. They show about a 15% increase in the number of level 1 felonies, which are the most violent offenses. So you look at those numbers in conjunction with Doug's comments on overdoses. We've got some severe challenges that we need to figure out how do we work together to address the violent crime issue. We talked about in the summertime and the fall, the drop in charges in April and May due to probably some of the stay-at-home orders. In some cases, 30%, 40% drop in cases. But by the end of the year 2020, there was no more than about a 5.7% drop in those other levels of charges. So murders and level 1s all went up, but level 2s through level 6s went down just by about 5 or 6%. And that's even with that 30% drop in April or May. So, our society has some real challenges, and hopefully we can work collectively to make Indiana safer.
Yes, absolutely.
Can I comment as well?
Go ahead, Judge. Sure.
Justice, with regards to Doug's comments, as a drug court judge, this is a really difficult time for people that are that have a substance dependency. and who also often have a co-occurring mental health disorder. The isolation has exacerbated the mental health issues. Treatment does not happen face-to-face really much anymore. It happens via Zoom, and which is great if you have excellent, we all have the benefit of having excellent Wi-Fi and things like that, but if you don't, it's difficult to be engaged. Self-help meetings like AA, NA, Celebrate Recovery, things like that don't happen in person anymore, and they happen online sometimes. But if you get on an online AA meeting, your group has people from all over the country, so it's tough to find a sponsor. And so we see a lot of relapses, and we see a lot of sort of those things in our community that had kind of helped to put, sort of arms around people that are in a substance dependency or mental health type of situation have fallen away. And so people are really struggling, and we're seeing that in overdoses, and we're seeing that in some violence and things like that. So it's really a tough time. I think we were doing a little bit better when the weather was nice. And now that the weather is not so nice, then I'm seeing people really struggling. So
It's very true. Anything else, folks? Well, Doug, you made those closing comments. So on behalf of JRAC, on behalf of my colleagues, I know that we all appreciate the governor's commitment to the criminal justice system, to its continual improvement. It's my great honor to serve with each and every one of you. And throughout the last year, that's doubly so because of the unique hardships that Indiana, our country, and the entire planet have really endured. So I have no doubt that the coming months and years will present challenges, but I'm confident that through our continued collaborative efforts, we'll meet them, and Indiana will be better for it. So I appreciate all of your attendance today. I appreciate all of your service. Is there any other business to be brought before JRAC today? Hearing none, our next meeting is scheduled for Friday, February 26th, and that meeting will be from 10 a.m. to 12 noon. An invitation for this meeting has been forwarded to members. Thank you all for taking time to participate in today's meeting and for your continued work serving our Indiana communities. Have a great weekend, everyone.
You too, Justice. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.